Inside the halls of San Diego State University lies a program dedicated to storytelling and pursuing the truth. Welcome to Where You At, a podcast that takes you inside the work of alumni for the School of Journalism and Media Studies at San Diego State. Our goal is to show the success of our alumni, inspire students with the stories, and connect students and alums on a pathway to journalism success. And now, here's your host, Josh Suchon.
This week on the Where You At podcast, we are staying in America's finest city, and I'm really excited about this week's episode because for the first time, we're going to talk about journalism through an entrepreneur standpoint, which is something that we have not done. Our guest is Whitney Bond. She started at San Diego State in the early 2000s, took a break, came back later. These days, she does a lot. She is a recipe developer. She is a social media influencer. She is a food blogger who has published a cookbook. She is an on-air culinary host. She does a little bit of everything. Whitney, welcome to the Where You At podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm really glad that I had a huge breakfast because I know that this podcast is going to make me hungry. I've been going through your website and looking at a number of different recipes in order to prepare for this. I cannot wait to try the lasagna soup. That looks really good, and some of your other Super Bowl recipes. So I'm excited to learn about your journey of how we got here, Whitney.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for you to try the lasagna soup. I'm telling you, I had it again last night because it was so good. After I made it, I immediately shot a video of it. So I've eaten it like 5 times in the last 2 weeks, and I love it.
Okay, so again, there's a lot of different careers that people can do in journalism, and I really like the idea of the entrepreneurial spirit of journalism. So in order to get to where you are now, Whitney, let's start with when you're growing up. Everyone's parents cook to some degree, but when did you realize, like, no, my family can really, really cook? That there's a different level of cooking that my family does that you learned from?
I actually think it wasn't until I moved to San Diego, because growing up in a smaller town in Oklahoma, everyone's families cooked. Like all of my friends' families cooked, and usually, had extended family nearby. I grew up across the street from my grandma. She's the one that really got me into cooking. I loved sitting on the counter with her and helping her make cookies and just watching her cook, and the love that she had for cooking and preparing meals for the family, for people to enjoy, to have friends over. I think that's what really, drew my passion for cooking, was the togetherness that it brings people. And when I moved to San Diego, I was living in the dorms at San Diego State, Chapultepec Hall. Shout out. We were only the second year to live there. Now there's been many, many decades of people that have lived there. But for any of those that live there now and don't know, or I don't even know if it's still there, but there was a little kitchenette in the recreation room. There's the pool table, and then there's a door, and that door goes to a little kitchenette that nobody knew was there, but I found out, and there's a key you'd get at the front desk, and I'd go in there and I'd cook and I'd make cookies for everyone on my floor. And that's a great way to meet people when you've just moved halfway across the country, because I didn't know anyone west of Oklahoma when I moved to San Diego. So here I am making cookies in the dorms, and everyone was like, oh, you're the girl that cooks. Like that just kind of became what I was known as. And I didn't realize that a lot of my friends in the dorms didn't grow up with parents or grandparents nearby that cooked every meal. Like they ate out a lot, and we ate out like on special occasions.
I wish that I had someone, when I was at Olmeca Hall, I wish that someone at Olmeca Hall would have cooked. I don't think I used the kitchen once in my entire year at Olmeca Hall. So I think this is great. And I also think just the idea of like, yes, this is how you meet friends when you move across the country and you don't know anybody. So that leads me to, why does this girl from Oklahoma pick San Diego State to go to college?
I mean, it's a quick and funny story. I grew up watching Saved by the Bell and 90210, and I always wanted to move to California. And my mom said, well, you got to pick a half. It's a big state. Pick the southern half or the northern half. And I said, the southern half. She said, okay, well, we'll fly into the southernmost, university you're interested in. We'll fly into San Diego, and then we'll drive up the coast. I had literally never been to California. I had never been west of Oklahoma. We got on a plane. That was my second flight I'd ever been on. We flew to San Diego. We drove over to San Diego State, and I go, yep, I like this one. And she said, well, we got to go see the other ones. We planned this whole trip. I was like, okay. And so we go up the coast, and I go to Cal State Long Beach, and I go to UCLA, and nope, I like that first one.
Sometimes your first instincts are the best instincts. Oh my goodness, I love it. Okay, so you're a freshman at San Diego State. What's the plan? Was it journalism right away? Were you undecided? What were you starting to think when you were a freshman at State about what you're going to do with your life?
I was thinking about going to the beach on the weekends. I had really no idea what I wanted to do for my career. I just knew I wanted to get out of Oklahoma and move to California, and San Diego was a great choice. I absolutely would be lying to you if I told you I had any idea that I would go down this path of food and journalism. My first instinct, I always had this entrepreneurial mindset, this idea of like running my own business in some way, right? Like I didn't know what that would look like. So my first idea was like, okay, I'm going to go through like business, go to the business department. And that was kind of the idea. And so my first 2 years, obviously I'm just doing, kind of prereqs, not really in the department yet. And then I left to start my first business. And it was basically I hired promotional models. So, at the time it was like Red Bull and Rockstar and Jägermeister handing out things at conferences downtown San Diego, bars, things like that. And I had started doing that to make money while I was in college. And I had one client that said, you're the only reliable girl I have. Like you show up every time. Do you have any friends that would do this? And that's when my wheels started turning. I'm like, I could make friends that could do this. And so I started that business, decided to take some time off from school. And then I actually thought I wanted to go down the route of sports broadcasting, like yourself. I love sports. And then I kind of realized that I like watching sports and making food for people to eat while we watch sports, but that wasn't necessarily the way I wanted to go. So I started this blog. Blogging had just become a thing. I had a friend that had started a blog, and I thought, I don't know, I have a lot of stories. I should start a blog and like tell people stories about my life. And so I did. And I was living in LA at the time, and I kind of gotten burned out on the LA thing. I moved back to San Diego, best decision I ever made. And I felt like the blogging thing could take off. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to go back to San Diego State, join the journalism department, and like actually try to, make this blog a thing. And luckily my first semester was also the first semester that back then it was called social media and journalism. I'm not sure what the class is called now, but Professor Nee was teaching it, and we just hit it off because at that time, I'm in my mid 20s and I'm like really excited about school. Very different direction than when I was 18. And and we hit it off, and I had such a great time learning from her, and just we were kind of learning from each other because I was taking things that I learned in class and immediately implementing them on the blog. That was kind of the cool thing about already having the blog and already having a social media presence, was that this wasn't like things I was learning to then use later in life. It was like things that I could use today.
Okay, I want to get into some more details about the beginning stages of writing a blog, because I advise students all the time, just create some type of content, whether you're doing a podcast with your friends, whether you're doing a blog. And a lot of people who have an idea for a blog and they come in and they're all gung ho. They've got this idea, they got this idea. Maybe they've got 5, maybe they've got 10. And then you hit like a month or 2 months in, and then you start to run out of ideas. It starts to feel like a job, especially when you're not getting paid initially. So for you, Whitney, when you're first starting, what was the process for you to stay consistent, to continue to come up with ideas when you probably didn't have an editor, when you're just your own boss for when you publish and how long they are and all that kind of stuff?
I actually guest lectured in Professor Nee's class for several semesters, almost 6 years. And one of the questions that I would most commonly get asked by students after the class was, how do I know what to write about? And so one of the things that I did when I started and that I always recommend is, like you said, like write about anything that you're passionate about. Maybe it's food, maybe it's sports, maybe it's hiking, maybe, whatever. It could be like the smallest thing. Like, I'm really into butterflies. I don't know. You know what I mean? There's someone else out there that would be interested in butterfly migration, or you would be amazed at how many topics there are on specific things. But just write about anything that you're interested in. That's what I did at the beginning. And then I think you'll find your focus, right? You'll find what draws you in, what you want to keep writing about, what your audience likes, right? Like, I mean, I had a very small audience of like my mom and her friends at the beginning, but I started to quickly realize that people were enjoying these recipes I was posting. And the funny thing was, I was just coming up with these recipes because I was a poor college student and I had to just make up stuff with what I had in the kitchen, and then I'd throw it on the blog. And so I was like, okay, like it quickly transitioned into a food blog within probably the first like 3 to 6 months of being like an everything blog with stories. And there's still some really funny stuff that I'll never delete. Like it's really hard to find these like old blog posts, but they're not deleted. They're out there somewhere. But there's one called the spaghetti sauce incident of 2011. And it's a whole blog post about how I dropped a jar of spaghetti sauce at the Target in West Hollywood, and I slipped and I fell and people were like stepping over me. And I actually used Microsoft Paint to make a drawing, and it looks like I'm laying in a pool of blood, not spaghetti sauce. So it's really terrible, but it's still somewhere out there. But yeah, I think it is a job, right? Like I've been doing this for 13 years, and this has been my full-time job for the last 11 plus years. So it is a job, but I still love it. Even if I didn't make money from it, I would do things differently. I might not spend so much time on SEO and things like that, but I would still make the recipes because I'm still passionate about that. So I think if you're wanting to start a blog or a TikTok channel or a YouTube channel or a podcast, like make it something that you really are passionate about, because you're going to have to find 1,000 different ways to talk about this subject over the next, hopefully 10, 20 years if you want to make it into a career.
Okay, let's get into when you do make it a career. And I'm curious, number one, when you decide to take the plunge here and decide that you're going to do this, but also, how do you know that I can do this financially? Like, what are the benchmarks? What are the different things where you realize I've been able to do enough of this so far that I think that if I do it completely full time, I can pay my bills on time?
Yeah. So I recommend being single, broke, and hungry if you want to make it your full-time gig. I actually started because I knew like if I was going to make this full-time, like I had to at least be able to like pay my rent. I had to pay my internet bill because I got a blog. Got to pay for my cell phone because that's what I was taking pictures with at the time, right? So, I knew like the minimum amount I had to make to just survive. And so I actually went to the Natural Food Expo in Anaheim. It happens every year. And I printed off a media kit that I had made myself, and I had my business card like stapled on it. And I literally just went around and talked to brands whose products I used in recipes or products I liked, and just said, hey, I have this blog. It gets this many page views per month. Like this was before people were doing like sponsored posts, right? But I thought, well, I'm promoting these brands. All these thousands of people are seeing it. Maybe they will pay me for, putting their brands in more recipes. And so that's what I did. And I got 2 clients, and I made like a boatload of recipes a month with their product for like very little money, but it was enough to at least pay my bills. So I was like, if I don't make any other money off the blog, I can at least pay my bills. I'm not going out downtown. I may be walking because I may not be able to put gas in my car, but like the bills are getting paid. I'm going to try to do this.
By the way, that's a genius idea to do that. Continue, but I just wanted to interject that is really, really smart. Continue.
Well, thank you. It's the entrepreneurial mindset, right? Like, I think if you have that, you'll figure out a way, right? And that was my whole thing. I had went to work for an internet marketing agency for 3 months. That's my only corporate job I've ever had in my life. And I was only part-time during those 3 months, and they were wonderful, but it was still like, I knew I didn't want that life, to wake up every morning, make my coffee, drive to an office park, sit at a cubicle, that just like, it wasn't, I knew quickly that was not me. And so I just wanted to find a way. Now, things are very different now. Obviously, there are a lot more opportunities for new bloggers out there. There's ad revenue, and depending on what level you're at on page views per month, you can be with different companies. I'm with a company called Raptive. They're probably the biggest one out there. You have to have a minimum of 100,000 page views per month to qualify. And so they get the top echelon bloggers, so then they get the top echelon advertisers. So that's one of my main questions people ask me is, how do I make money? And my mom explains it to her friends in Oklahoma that are of a different generation, right? Like, think about it as like TV or magazines, right? People advertise. These are just the modern day magazines, right? Like, I am the Good Housekeeping or the Women's Day of 40 years ago. Women used to get them, open them up, look for recipes, cut them out, and then take them to the kitchen and make them. It's the same thing. Now it's just on your phone, right? And so ad revenue is a huge generator of income for me. But I think I listened to a podcast, so many years ago, and it was talking about how as a blogger, you needed to have so many eggs in your basket, right? Do not just rely on ad revenue. Because I've had friends that, Google makes a change and all of a sudden their traffic drops, their ad revenue drops, and they're relying on making so much per month, and it can plummet. Right. So if you don't have any other eggs in your basket, you're up the river. Right. And so the idea is, right, you have affiliate income, right? So you're linking out to, Amazon or, for food, it's a little harder because obviously you're not clicking on a link to go buy carrots, right? But you might click on a link to go buy a slow cooker, so there's always ways that you can integrate links, affiliate links. Now, those don't pay as well, right? It's usually a small percentage, but you can find some that pay better. And then sponsored content is still a thing, right? Working with brands and having them place their products in post. But I think, over the last couple of years, especially since the pandemic, it's like I've really had to get creative with the different ways that I make money. So like last year, a client I work with is the California Beef Council. They're wonderful people. And the thing I love most about them is they are open to anything. We've done a podcast together. We've done videos. We've done in-person events. And last year, we actually did an in-person event at my house. So I hosted 30 influencers and ranchers from the state of California. And I did a 7-course beef dinner at my house, paired with a local brewery that gives their grain to the cows, that the rancher that they went to the ranch that morning feeds their cattle, and then the ranchers came. It was an amazing experience, right? But like something totally out of the box. So I think that's the idea with modern journalism, as you might call it, is that you have to be willing to adapt with what's going on right now, right? And what fits with your priorities. For me, I love being in person. I love talking to people. So that event was so much fun. I was doing in-person news segments for a lot of time, but obviously that quit with the pandemic. And so now, I'm able to do some of that from home for brands, but, the landscape is changing, right? Brands are more interested in a YouTube video than a local news segment a lot of the times, right? It's just changing with the times.
Yeah, so that's a perfect segue because now the big thing, certainly the algorithm on my phone has realized that I want to see ways to repurpose vegetables and fruit once I'm done eating them, and also recipes. So that is a big part. It's no longer just enough to write something about and take some pictures. Now you have to do videos, and now they have to be quick and snazzy, and they have to get people's attention within 3 seconds, and they have to be edited in a really quick way. So Whitney, tell us about your transition to making videos as well to go along with these food recipes.
Yeah, so some of my first homemade videos are really treacherous. So it's just like anything else, right? You just have to get started, right? And you'll get better. The more you do it, the better you'll get. I have a friend that's starting a blog right now, and she's constantly saying, but my photos don't look as good as yours. And, my recipes aren't as good, whatever. I'm like, I have been doing this for 13 years. You've been doing this for like 13 weeks, right? Like I have learned all of this along the way. And I think video for me, it was something that I had to start doing myself because of the pandemic, because I used to have a team that would come over to my house and we would shoot. But my husband and I weren't comfortable with having people in our house during the pandemic. So I had to shoot them myself. So right below me, there's a dent in my floor from where my camera fell off the tripod the first time I tried to shoot a video, broke my camera and dented my floor. I was not happy.
Oh no.
But that's part of it, right? You just figure it out. And so after a few shoots, I started to figure it out on my own. I didn't know how to edit videos, so I was trying to do that on my own, and now I figured it out. It's one of those things that's like, I do hire some things out, but I like to at least know how to do it myself, because now when I'm shooting video with someone else, I see it from an editor's perspective, because I've edited the videos now. So I understand what they're looking for. And, if you move your hand in this direction, right, it's going to block the camera. So you need to move it like this. And so I think it's just made my content better overall for me to be shooting myself. Now, we were fortunate that we bought a house and remodeled it before the pandemic. So there was always this idea that I would be able to use the kitchen for videos or news segments if I needed to. And then it just happened that I needed to. So
what percentage of your kitchen is an actual kitchen, and what percentage of it is a quasi TV studio?
Well, 100% of it is basically our working kitchen, right?
Okay.
Like that's where we eat, where we host our family, all these things. What you see behind me is the studio. So I have a separate studio. So there's all of my blogging props. So you'll see all of I guess you guys can't see it because this is a podcast. I'm sorry.
We're going to put some video for people to see this as well. So continue.
Okay. Well, just for those that don't see the video, basically I have a studio that's separate from my kitchen, where I shoot all of my photos and where I work every day. So when we do a video shoot, I usually do a video shoot about twice a month. Then basically my kitchen transforms. My husband gets like treats left on the bottom of the stairs because he also works from home. So he can come downstairs and get his treats, but he doesn't interrupt the video shooting. So it kind of transforms for one day and one day only, and then cleans up and all comes back to my studio for me to shoot photos every day.
What are some of the preparation that you have to do? I mean, you're making a meal, but when you're making a meal with a camera, I would think that there's a little bit different. What's the different types of preparations that you need to do before you get ready to film everything and cook everything on camera?
Yeah. So whenever I'm filming, I always print the recipes out so that I have the printed version in front of me and I'm looking at the ingredients, and then I'm really thinking through how I'm going to incorporate each one into the video, right? And once again, it comes to that editing. How am I going to edit this at the end, right? Like, which shot do I want to be my money shot, right? Like, is it dipping a meatball in sauce, right? Is it pouring the sauce over? Is it pulling apart something cheesy and delicious and getting that great cheese pool? You'll see that on the lasagna soup video I just published last night. Great cheese pool.
Okay.
But it's thinking through really the final video before you start ever shooting. And then that helps my process of how I'm going to shoot something.
Okay. Quick question. Do you shoot everything horizontal, vertical, or both?
Both. So social media has really just become a huge pain because they all like to do things differently. So you're like, how am I possibly going to shoot one video one time and please everyone, right? So I actually shoot one camera angle horizontally overhead and then one vertically on the side. And then every video gets edited 3 times, a horizontal video for YouTube, my blog, and Facebook, a square video to turn into a pin for Pinterest and to post on Instagram, and then a vertical video for Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts.
Sounds exhausting.
It really is. It really is. Social media has changed the game a lot.
But it's necessary. You're the expert here, but I was about to say you can't, but you tell me, can you be a chef, a recipe developer and not have things on social media these days?
I would love that. If I'm being completely honest, if I did not ever have to make another dollar off my blog, I would immediately get off social media completely, just because it can be such a negative energy suck, right? But it is a necessary evil, as you said. Well, I added the evil part, but it is necessary these days to promote your brand. Now, I'm trying to find ways to not rely on that, because just like income, having the different eggs in your basket, at any point in time, algorithms can change, right? And it's like, I have, almost 40,000 followers on Instagram that took me so many years to build up. And it's like, usually a post gets seen by 2,000 people. How many of those 2,000 people, since you can't actually click on a post on Instagram, do you think then go to the link in my bio, click through and actually go to the recipe? Like probably 2. So when I'm receiving almost 1 million page views per month and I'm only getting 2 per post on Instagram, doesn't make sense for me to spend my time there. I do post, but it is not my primary driver of traffic. It's not a primary moneymaker, and it's just not my priority. My priority is making sure my blog post please my reader, because at the end of the day, the one thing I've realized after 13 years of doing this is your loyal readers are by far the most valuable. And so what I'm trying to do is I want you to sign up for my email list and I want you to find value in it. I send 2 emails a week. I try not to, blow people up. I send my actual menu for every holiday. So for Super Bowl, I'll be sending out my menu, like what I will be serving at my party goes out in an email, right? For Thanksgiving, same thing. For Christmas, same thing, things like that, right? Like I want to add value to my loyal readers. And so the email subscribers are where those people are at. They're unfortunately not on social media anymore because they don't even necessarily see my stuff. So I know that you're getting my email, right? And opening it and clicking and seeing things. And so for me, that's the priority, is writing great content for my readers that then hopefully Google likes, and then getting people obviously on my email list. For me, Pinterest is another huge driver of traffic because the nature of what I do. Food obviously is huge on Pinterest. It's visual. Right. So for photos or videos, you're scrolling through Pinterest, you want to capture people's attention. I feel like, Instagram and TikTok have kind of gone in a different direction of making more like, I don't want to say not quality, but it's more about getting your attention than providing you a quality recipe that you can make for your family for years to come, which is what I'm trying to do.
Let's talk about the storytelling aspect of what you do. The slogan for San Diego State's School of Journalism and Media Studies is "We make storytellers." You're telling a story. The story that you're telling is about food, about bringing people together. Give us some insights into how your mind works with what emotions I'm trying to convey, with whether it's with writing or whether it's with the shot, like you said, a really good, a great cheese pull, and how you're just kind of thinking through the storyline of how you want to do this with food.
For me, my goal, I guess I would say, is that every recipe that I make is a winner at your house. Because I started this blog basically because I was so poor, I couldn't go buy more food. So I had to make things up. I never want people to waste food, right? I still hate wasting food, right? Like, we're just a family of two. It's just me and my husband. I make so many recipes a week. On video shoot days, I'm shooting usually 6 recipes, and these could be 6 meals, right? We are eating leftovers the rest of that week. Like, I hate wasting food. My neighbors get so much food. Like, anytime I'm baking, I try to never throw anything away. This is like, girl that moved from Oklahoma that had no money. Like, I still, 20 something years later, cannot waste food. So I want to make sure that, like, if you make the recipe, that you love it, right? So for me, it's testing the recipe. Sometimes I'll make a recipe and I'm just like, this one isn't even, like, there's no chance here. I can't, just scrapping it, right? Like, we still eat it, but it's not going on the blog, right? And then sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm like so close, right? Like, it needs this or it needs that. I just want like tons of flavor from the recipes that I create. And when I write a blog post, I try to think of the girl that moved from Oklahoma that grew up learning to cook from her grandma, but like, I really didn't know much outside of what I grew up cooking, right? And so now I have recipes on my blog in a sous vide, in an air fryer, in an Instant Pot, all things that didn't exist when I started blogging, right? And I had to learn from someone how to do these things. And so I basically, when I write a blog post, I think about, okay, I've just moved to San Diego. I'm cooking dinner for my friends or my boyfriend for the first time. And I want every single detail to make sure this is the best recipe ever, right? And so I'm very thorough in my blog posts, right? Including tons of notes on the recipe that, some of these recipes I've made dozens and dozens of times, right? And so if I ever think of anything, oh, you know what, someone might find this a little spicy, let me include a note in how to make this not spicy, right? Or my brother is celiac, which means he can't have gluten. And so I try to include notes on how to make things gluten-free, right? So it's thinking of my audience and thinking, what questions might they have? And I even sometimes look at other blog posts or recipes that already exist. All recipes, like, I am not a fan of the site, but honestly, people leave a ton of comments on there. So if I'm making a similar recipe, I sometimes go read their comments and see what questions people are asking and see if maybe I can provide that answer for them in my blog post.
I like that. That's really smart too. You've made a lot of appearances on television, like the standard morning show in Sacramento, San Diego, Arizona, Union Tribune's TV channel, CBS, a lot of appearances. What's it like? So when we watch it as the audience, it's okay. You start with this and you kind of go by and what might take however long it takes to make the meal, we see in 30 seconds or a minute. Tell us what it's like preparing a meal in 6 or 7 different stages right away for that live segment on TV.
So you're going to love this story. I hadn't even thought about that. I was like, this is such a great story to tell on this podcast. I hadn't thought about this until you just asked that question. So I wanted to be on TV and I thought, okay, I have this background in journalism. I know I could be good on TV, right? And so I'm sitting in my apartment in San Diego and I look on LinkedIn for San Diego State alumni that work at a news station. And I find this guy, San Diego State alumni, was the booking producer at CW. And I reached out to him on LinkedIn and I said, hey, fellow SDSU alumni. And I'm a great cook. I have this great blog and you should put me on TV. He called me the next day. I literally couldn't make this up. I was eating a hot dog for lunch, still poor, right? Okay, not making that much money off my blog. And he's like, can you come on tomorrow and do a segment about low sodium cooking? Now, if you know nothing about food, literally probably the most high sodium food out there is a hot dog. And I put down my hot dog and I was like, yes, I can do that. I literally had to make up 3 low sodium recipes, not knowing anything about low sodium cooking that day, and prepare for my first ever news segment the next day. And he says, you'll have plenty of time to like prepare at the station. I was like, okay. So I just came with like ingredients. And I'm sitting and I'm like in the studio, like the news is happening, right? And so you have to be really quiet back there, like, prepping your food. It's not like a normal kitchen, right? Like literally they're over there like, the weather today is going to be 74 and sunny because we live in San Diego. And I'm like chopping lettuce, right? And they're like, okay, you're on next. And I'm like, oh my God, like I had nothing ready. I am just like chopping away. And I literally threw a cutting board off set, like as they went live. And I just like smiled and was like, here's my stuff. And he literally, the segment was over. He's like, you were great. Can you come back next week? And I had a regular segment on the show. But from then on, I prepared a lot more at home. So when you're doing news, you're basically making the recipe before you go. And then you're kind of like, heating it up or finishing it or showing a finishing touch, like things like that on the actual show, because you definitely don't have time to show how to prepare. I mean, these little 60-second videos I make for the blog, right? They're sped up a lot. Whereas the news is not sped up. So, you just kind of have to get the gist of the recipe, because I'm usually making, 3 or 4 recipes and I have a 3 to 5 minute segment. So you do the math, I have about a minute to talk about each one, plus a little fluff at the beginning and end, right? So it was so fun. The crew at the CW, the years that I was on there, were literally like the nicest people in the world. I loved working with them, and they shut down the CW. And I've since done some segments on CBS with some of the same crew, and they were just so wonderful to work with. And it opened up the opportunity for so many other TV segments and on-camera appearances in other markets. So very grateful to Nate. Nate was the SDSU alumni that gave me my first shot on CW in San Diego. So
yeah, I like it so much. SDSU alums helping SDSU alums. It warms my heart every time. It's a good segue to talk about your book. It's called Buffalo Style, and where that led to going across the country and doing a number of different TV appearances as well. So tell us about how you transition the recipes and the stories from your blog into this book, Buffalo Style.
I was at a dinner in San Diego and actually met someone that was from Oklahoma, and her family friend, they owned a small publishing house in Oklahoma. And so she said, have you ever thought about doing a book? And I said, I would love to. And so she set up a meeting for me the next time I was in Oklahoma. It was very memorable because I met with them. They said they wanted to do a deal. And then it was I can't remember the year now, but it was when there were very, very bad tornadoes that hit Oklahoma. And my mom and I literally had to outrun the tornado to get home from that meeting. Like I'm watching it behind us and I'm like, oh my gosh, this book's never going to happen because we're going to die. And thank God we made it home safely. But yeah, meeting I'll never forget. And, it was very budget. It was over a decade ago that I published it. I had to do pretty much everything on my own. They had no budget I hear some of my friends that have since published with the big publishing houses. They're like, yeah, I did my whole cookbook in 3 days. I had like a 30-person team of photographers and editors and stylists. And I'm like, oh yeah, my experience was very different. So, it's something that, maybe I would do it again if I had that kind of experience. It is nice to be able to say you're a published cookbook author, right? It's nice to be able to say you're on TV, right? Even though things are going in the direction of, how many followers do you have on TikTok? It still, I think, legitimizes you as a journalist, right? To have something published, to be on TV, to use these traditional forms of journalism, right, to then promote these new forms of journalism.
I like that story a lot, especially the part about you go to dinner and people are saying, hey, what are you doing? Or what do you want to be doing? And I know that even myself, so often I just think, well, I don't want to tell everybody what I'm doing, especially if it's the side project and I haven't fleshed it out yet. Maybe I start to get into my head about, well, maybe it's not going to work out. And then 6 months later, they're going to be like, hey, whatever happened to that thing you were talking about? Or I just feel almost like, well, I don't want to dominate the conversation at dinner by telling them, oh, well, I'm working on this and this and this. But when you tell people, people inherently want to help. And when you tell people what you do and they go, oh, I know someone who has a publishing house. Would you like to do a book, and how it can lead to things? And so bravo to you, Whitney, for doing those types of things, because again, this is where it comes back to food and meeting people and being off our phones and having these conversations. And then it leads to like these other things. And then the next thing you know, you're going across the country on a book tour and you're signing books and you're getting to meet more and more people here. I think it's just really cool.
Well, thank you. I think it is so important to, especially if you're an entrepreneur or, you're wanting to start anything, you have to talk to people about it, right? And like, don't be afraid to rely on help from people around you. Like, I think that's it's the main thing. It's the only thing that but my perseverance and being hard-headed and the people around me have gotten me to where I am, because I remember when I was at a picnic at Balboa Park with a bunch of girls. It was a girls' picnic. There were like 25 girls there, and we're all sitting around talking. And I said, I think I'm going to have to go back to working in like social media management, like go back to corporate, because I just not making enough money off my blog. And all of these girls said, you're so close. What can we do to help you? And I said, well, I had this idea of like throwing like a pop-up supper club dinner. I had a ton of friends that had like bars and restaurants around San Diego. And I said, if they would let me use their kitchen, like, and do a pop-up dinner, like, would you buy tickets? And they're like, oh my God, yes. And so I called all my connections and I'm like, hey, can I use part of your kitchen for a night, part of your restaurant, do this? And they just wanted to support me, right? Like, they just wanted to help me. And it got me by. I did them for like 6 months, and it was enough to get me through to like when I was making more money off the blog. It's like you just have to be a hustler, and you have to not be afraid to fail and not be afraid to ask people for help. Like, I think people see these stories of like someone went viral with one video, right? And they've been on TikTok for 6 months and now they're making $1 million a year. It's like, that's not normal, right? Like, I can tell you, I've been doing this for 13 years. I've had like one video go viral on Facebook and one video go viral on Reels, like on Instagram. That's it, over 13 years. And it didn't make me that much more money, right? Staying consistent is what's made me money, right? Staying consistent is what has made my blog, my business for the last 13 years.
So one of the questions that I had ready was, what's your advice for students who want to have some type of entrepreneurial journalism? And you just answered it. I mean, that was perfect. About, you got to hustle, ask for help, stay consistent, that the overnight sensation is so rare and it's fleeting. It's all about the long-term consistency of it.
Yeah. That would basically be my advice. And use the resources you have at SDSU, right? If you're a current student or alumni. It's so funny that you reached out to me, because literally on my goal list above my desk right now, it says, get more involved in SDSU alumni. And you emailed me 2 weeks after I printed that out. I definitely believe in like fate and karma in the world, but that was a sign. I was like, see, this was what was supposed to happen this year. It's like, whether I can help people or they can help me, or we can help each other, or we could just work together or just be friends, right? Like, I think that's the great thing about having an awesome university. It's like, we're all from this beautiful, wonderful place that we get to live in, whether it's forever or for a period of time, right? And so definitely use the resources you have while you're at SDSU, and then remember that they continue after. And you never know, like, I'm always happy to help any SDSU alumni that reaches out to me. So whether it's, questions about starting a blog, I get so many emails after I guest lecture at San Diego State, right? And I always tell them, like, send me specific questions, not like, how do you start a blog? But like, if you're like, okay, like, I want to start this blog on football and, here's what I've got so far, like, what advice would you get? I'm happy to do that. So I think just don't be afraid to reach out and ask, because maybe you'll get no response, or maybe it'll be the response that'll change your life.
All right, let's start to wrap things up. I want to ask you about the Super Bowl, because the Super Bowl is this Sunday. At least if people are listening to this podcast in one of the first 4 days after it gets published, then this Sunday is the Super Bowl. Or if they listen to it weeks or months later, then the Super Bowl is past. But nonetheless, this huge cultural event that is the Super Bowl, and so much of it is about parties and food. And so I need to think of a really specific question here based on what your last answer was. So what are the most important things for having a banger of a Super Bowl party with your food, Whitney?
This is really funny. I make all recipes that I can, like, at least prep ahead of time. I have 2 friends that are coming to visit for that weekend. My annual Super Bowl party is pretty big deal. And I said, you guys have any requests? And she's requesting like the most like lengthy, like hands-on time, like recipe. I'm like, never mind. Sorry. So definitely prepping ahead. Things you can like put in the crock pot is always great. I own like 12 crock pots. If you don't, like a normal human, you could ask your friends or neighbors to like bring an extra crock pot. Things like meatballs are great in the crock pot. Like I just made these buffalo chicken meatballs. They're going to be on my Super Bowl menu. They're so good. You could pour some buffalo sauce on there so they don't dry out. Just keep it on warm. I set up just a big buffet. I've done taco bars in the past in the slow cooker. So I'll have like one with buffalo chicken, one with like tri-tip, and then, maybe one like veggie fajitas or something. And then people could just make their tacos throughout the game, right? Like it's I have people coming over like 3 or 4 hours before the game and then the whole game, right? So, people are there like 8 to 10 hours. So it's kind of like a grazing, board, but like keep it safe, right? Like keep it on warm. Like don't just like set your dip out for like 8 hours, right? Like let's keep it on warm in the crock pot.
I'm always a huge fan of the taco bar. You can never go wrong with a really good taco bar. So that made me
it's
smile.
San Diego,
yes.
Right? Everyone loves tacos. And if you're listening to this podcast later, maybe it's March Madness time. And hopefully we'll be hooping in March Madness. And if you're going to throw a watch party, there you go. Make a taco bar, make some meatballs.
Absolutely. All right, Whitney. We like to close things out by bragging about other San Diego State alums who are doing something, anything, usually related to communications. You've had some shout outs already, but who would you like to highlight and brag about from San Diego State?
Well, they're not necessarily in the JMS department, but David and Riza Barron, they own Jackie's Jams. And if you guys haven't had Jackie's Jams, they're so delicious. I think they're really only sold in Southern California. I get mine at Specialty Produce, which I love. You could probably get them on their website. They're SDSU alumni couple. She actually used to be the SDSU alumni president, and their jams are so delicious. I buy them for everyone when I go home to Oklahoma for Christmas, and they look forward to them every year. They have like a pineapple guava. Oh my gosh, this like fruity, delicious tropical one for summer. You got to get it. I use their jalapeno jelly on like smoked pork chops. Oh my gosh, it's so good. So shout out to Jackie's Jams, SDSU alumni.
You're making me hungry again, Whitney. Definitely making me hungry again. Okay, for the alum that I want to shout out, I always try to find someone who is similar to this week's guest. And the person I'm going to highlight, I've not met her, but I found her on LinkedIn as well. And basically, whatever Whitney does with food, this woman does with gardening. Her name is Bailey Van Tassel. She has a book that's on the way, and she has a blog, just like Whitney, that's about gardening. Again, she has a book that's on the way. She has a podcast about gardening, about motherhood. You can get on her email, and she gives all types of great advice. I'm now one of her subscribers on email, and I get all types of gardening tips. And so she has done a very similar thing as Whitney is that she has taken her love for gardening and being outdoors, which also relates to food, and she has turned that into her career. Again, her name is Bailey Van Tassel. Van Tassel Home Gardens. If you want to find her online on LinkedIn and learn more about gardening from Bailey, I highly recommend her because I cannot wait for it to warm up so that I can take some of Bailey's tips and put it into my pathetic garden in my backyard.
Awesome. I'm going to have to follow her too, because I love growing herbs and tomatoes and things. And it's about that season here. So I got to go give her a follow.
Yeah, maybe we'll get you two connected and see if you guys can collaborate in some way. All right, Whitney, thank you so much for being generous with your time and giving us so much insight. This was really fun. I've been looking forward to having an entrepreneur with a journalism background on the podcast, and this was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Once again, that is Whitney Bond. She is a recipe developer, social media influencer, food blogger. She has published a cookbook. She's an on-air culinary host. Follow her at whitneybond.com. My name is Josh Suchon. I'm your host. Thank you for listening. Go Aztecs, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks for listening to the Where Ya At podcast. This is Devin Watley from the class of 2021. Thanks to Martine Marine for creating the music you're hearing right now, and Alex Piscatelli for her work on the podcast name and artwork on social media. And a reminder to SDSU alums, we really want to know where you're at. Tell us about your career. Get involved in the school. There's many ways you can do this, from donating your time or money, mentoring students, to even speaking in classrooms, in person or on Zoom. Your work can help us grow the program and create more opportunities for our students to succeed. Again, thanks for listening. Subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. Recommend us a future guest. And go Aztecs.